Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to Conscious 2. My guest in the studio today is Alexis Shepperd. Hi, Alexis.
Hi, Alex.
And Alexis is a PhD psychologist, life coach, and founder of the Authentic Woman Experience. And in today's interview, we're going to be exploring the Authentic Woman Experience, or as I believe it's also known. So maybe that's just a starting point. What is the Authentic Woman Experience?
So the Authentic Woman Experience is a company that I own with my business partner, Shana James. And we offer workshops, we offer audios and products and individual coaching for women, all based around personal empowerment, vulnerability, just what it means to be a woman now and how to enjoy it to the fullest, including romantic relationships and relating with other women, what sisterhood means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we'll come into more a little bit around kind of how the workshops work and how the work is. But maybe as a starting point, how did you come to this? And so I should say we've done a separate interview on circling, so people can have a bit of a sense of your journey there. But maybe specifically with you and, let's say, relationships and kind of your, I guess, embracing your femininity. Can you say something about how that has become alive for you and become part of your path?
You know, I think if I were to look 20 years ago, I would have been so surprised this is what I was doing. Because I was so awkward with my femininity. I mean, I didn't have any ideas about it, but I would wear clothes that were 2 sizes too big for me. And, you know, I kind of rejected putting on makeup. And not that that's what it means to be a woman, but it was all just outer examples of me not quite knowing what to do with that aspect of myself. And, you know, there's many things that contributed to that changing over time. But at one point, at the same time, I found myself in the community where we created circling, which we talked about in the previous video. I also was surrounded by men and women who are relating in different ways than I was used to. So I started having experiences with other women of them being authentic with me. And friendships started to go to a whole new place.
When you say being authentic with you, can you give an example of what that might appear like?
So I was really fortunate to get to be with people who were less interested in saying what was socially appropriate and more interested in saying what was true. So it could have been anything from, hey, I really like you and I'd like to get to know you more, to, I feel really hurt that you haven't been calling me back. Or, actually I feel really jealous of you. I realize every time I'm around you, I feel jealous of X, Y, or Z. Things that would be difficult to say sometimes. And also, but then going through things and having women and men show up for that as friends, as people in my life in a different way than I was used to. So then I also got to be there for other women going through things, going through anger at men. One woman I'm thinking of who, she didn't even know she was angry at men. And kind of going through that and going from being really shut down to actually getting that she was really angry with some of the ways men had treated her in her life and getting that out. And then from there, blossoming. So I was having these different experiences with women, including, so I think a lot of the way women relate with each other is either they keep a distance or there's some sort of cattiness or superficiality or competition, competition for love, for attention, something like that. Or they do things like whatever the other woman says, they say, they just side with her and support her. Oh, that's so awful. And yeah, he
kind
really should have called you back. Yeah, it's all about colluding.
Yeah.
and this was something different. Like, what if we're not actually going to pretend and be in competition with each other, but we can even be honest about some of those difficult things coming up. And at the same time, we're going to love and care about each other, but call each other out. So if I have a girlfriend who is, complaining about her husband, that I'm not just going to collude with that I'm actually going to say, well, I have to say the way you're talking about him right now is really uninspiring. It feels really disrespectful. I'm having a hard time listening to you.
Yeah. And just before we come a bit more to kind of some of the elements of the work, I'm just curious, for you, you were saying kind of 20 years ago, you were kind of, to put my words on it, you weren't comfortable with your femininity, let's say. How did this community of people, these practices, what happened for you? Something changed?
Yeah, something did change. A lot changed.
Sure. Okay. So say something about that.
Yeah, so there was the aspect of relating with the women in my life, and then there was the aspect of relating with the men, with my boyfriend at the time, and also other men who were friends. And I had all these ideas that I didn't even know I had. Ideas that to be emotionally vulnerable would be a turnoff. That I don't want to look needy or high maintenance. That I need to prove that I'm as competent as a man is. Or, every woman's got something unique, but these are, there's some universal bits to that. And so, like, for instance, I remember one time sitting in the kitchen with my boyfriend at the time and eating a meal. And he said, "Would you like some water?" I said, "Yeah, I'll get it." And he said, "No, I'll get it." But he wasn't up, at the kitchen already getting himself a glass of water. I could have done that. If he was already filling water, I could have said, "Sure, get me a glass." But he was sitting eating too. And I said, No, I'm going to get I'll get my glass of water. He said, "No, I'm going to get you a glass of water." And I could feel my whole body kind of, or, my whole worldview get rattled because I thought, why would he want to do that? That's, I need to be self-sufficient. And, that was just one tiny example of so many experiences that I had where I got that actually what people wanted from me is me being real, and what men wanted from me is they didn't want me to be weak or anything like that, but they wanted me, among many other things, they wanted to be able to contribute to me. That blew my mind. That would actually be a turn on, that would actually be interesting.
Right.
Whether it was something as simple as getting me a glass of water. That when I made this space, so for me, this is an aspect of the feminine, of not ever expecting a man or anyone to do things for me.
Because you have to believe you can do it for yourself.
Yeah, and because I know I'm competent.
Sure.
So I know I'm competent, and so I don't need to prove that.
Sure.
When I don't need to prove that, I can actually make a space for people to contribute to me in all kinds of ways. And I find people love that.
Yeah.
Just like I love contributing to people, but especially in the masculine and feminine dynamic.
I think it's a sense for a man that if he doesn't feel he can contribute, there's no place for him in a woman's life. There's the feeling
exactly
that
right.
I can't contribute, therefore this woman, there's no place for me. I need to find somewhere that I can.
Exactly. And so I've gone through this, in a previous relationship. I learned this the hard way, but I've heard this a lot from men and from women talking about their men, that if a man says, is breaking up, ending a relationship, and he says, "Well, I'm leaving because I can't make you happy." And the woman says, "Oh, that's a bunch of rubbish." Like, that's just his excuse, and it might be, but a lot of times men do leave if they really think there's actually no way for me to make this woman happy.
Sure.
If I'm not needed, if I can't contribute to her life, why would I stay?
Yeah. And I think that there's a kind of very interesting connotation about the word need. Because it's like, my understanding of it is for a woman, of course she doesn't want to feel that she needs a man. That's not a healthy place to be, and rightly she'd want to feel that she can be self-sufficient. But there's also something true to be said, speaking as a man, that there's a sense that you want a woman to want you, in a sense,
Yes.
and also to let you give and support and hold, not because she can't hold herself, but there's something about it that ignites the masculine energy.
Exactly. And I mean, and it's so interesting because it's also what, for most women at most times, what they're most longing for is to be seen, is to be really appreciated and desired, to be taken care of, not like a child, but like a woman.
Sure. Can you say more about that? That's a good distinction. How would you see the difference of taking care of a woman versus taking care of a child?
Well, sometimes the lines blur together, and this is, this comes out really clearly when I work with couples. But, taking care of a child can't do things for themselves in certain ways. And, there's that mothering or fathering kind of quality.
Yes.
And making it okay. I'm going to, they fall and skin their knee and you want to kiss the boo-boo and make it better.
Sure.
Taking care of the way a man can take care of a woman in a way that's been impactful in my life and many of my clients' lives is that I know somewhere deep down that whatever happens, I'm going to be fine. I just know that. And at the same time, so I'm not in a panic about that and that I'm going to cling to you like my safety or my okayness really depends on you.
Yes.
But that I can relax into you, that I can let you be there for me, contribute to me, that I can lean on you, not because I have to, but because I want to, because it's actually a delicious way to play for both of us.
Yes. Yeah. I want to come back to that in a little bit. I just wanted to give, before that, people a sense of some of how you work with people in the workshops and the programs that you run. And one of the elements that I'm curious to kind of explore particularly is I'm aware that one of the ways that you help people to see things about themselves is through panels of the opposite sex. And so in terms of the authentic woman experience, that you would have a panel of men, as I understand it, and they would give real-time feedback about how they experience a woman. That's obviously pretty confronting and challenging, I imagine. But can you say something about why you use that tool and some of the effect that it can have on people?
Yeah. So in a lot of our courses, I say I have my own team of men, which is so fun.
Everyone wants their own team of men.
Exactly. And I have a team of some of the most incredible men that I've ever met. And I have a waiting list of men who want to be on the AW team.
Oh, wow.
And because I think once men start to get a taste of this, they want to contribute to the feminine. They want to be able to show up as a person and as a man and exercise that way of being. And Shane and I are really selective, not because these other men aren't great, but because we want men who have done a lot of work on themselves and are not going to go in and be with a woman. Or, this is one principle that we that's important to us, is that we're not going to ask somebody to go someplace that we haven't really traversed ourselves.
Yes.
So it's the same is true with the men. So that, and also that they can take their experience and put it into a language that women understand. And not every man can do that. So we bring men in on panels, and we also bring them in our intensive course. We bring them in to do really interactive exercises with the women. And the purpose of that is that there's certain things that will only come up when a man is there. Just like there are certain things that will only come up when a woman is there, whether it's, so when we bring men in, I don't know whether it's going to be issues about her father or issues about attractiveness, and dating, or who knows what, or the way, a boy treated her at school. I don't know what it is, but there's something different that happens and different for every woman,
Yes.
just being with a man. And so we create a space where women can actually go to all of those places. And so for some women, it is, getting to express some kind of anger she hasn't expressed.
So she'd express it in real time to that man, even obviously, although it's not about him, but use it as a kind of conduit to access it.
Yeah, and so myself and Shannon will bring in other really skilled women facilitators so that we're always there to kind of, we either create very specific exercises that allow them to get at certain things, or we're just there kind of facilitating the interaction. But in terms of the feedback, this is so interesting. So we bring men in and we say, you're just going to have, these are just men, these are not perfect people, but you're going to come in and you're going to have a real interaction with each other. And so in the moment, the man's having an experience of what it's like to be with this woman. And so it might be, so they're sitting talking about something, and it might be, she's wondering why, let's say, for instance, we're working with a woman and she's wondering why she gets asked out on dates and then they never call her again. And she doesn't understand this. Well, they might have an intellectual answer that they understand as a man. Well, this might be what's happening, or that might be what's happening. But then we also talk about what's happening in the moment. And so as he's being with her, so she's talking about this, and they might say, well, this is what's happening for me. What's happening for me is, I think you're a really beautiful woman. I notice I'm attracted to you. But I have this sense that you're not really going to let me in. And that even as you're talking right now, you're talking about something really important, but it seems to be in this kind of chit-chatty way. And so I don't know that you're really going to be curious about me, and I don't have a sense this is going to go any deeper. And so for him to be able to...
So he's picking up on her lack of availability, ultimately.
Yeah, so that might be it. So maybe it is that she's the kind of woman who's not the kind of woman, but...
No, I understand what you mean.
But she's realized, I know how to flirt. I know how to be playful, have playful social banter, but there's a wall there where she never lets them into her vulnerability.
Yes. And they can somehow, even if it's not consciously, unconsciously something in them senses that.
Yes, exactly. And so then we also never assume, so it's not like the man sits there and says, this is what's true about yours. You're not emotionally available. This is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. All he's saying is what he is feeling and experiencing. Yes. Then we turn it back around and say, what happened in you as you heard that? And maybe she says, God, I feel really frustrated. Like I keep trying. Why are you having that experience? Or she might, maybe tears will come and she'll say, oh yeah, I didn't know men wanted that from me. And so we use the real in the moment interaction as a place to jump off from.
Yes.
And usually that's just the doorway. So it's like we're finding the doorway to go in. And so say if she's, she says, yeah, actually I don't let men in very far. And I might ask, why not? And I never know where that's going to go. It might go all the way down to maybe some traumatic experience she had of being vulnerable and getting hurt, and where she's had this protective wall up. And we're never going to go in and just try and change it from the level of beliefs, but actually give an in-the-moment experience of just being with each other as human beings.
Yes. And if there is, for example, a traumatic experience that comes up, it would just be that there's somewhat of a healing of that in the space for it to arise, or you would do more specific therapeutic work with that, or that would depend upon the situation.
Some of that, yeah. I mean, I have some training to work with trauma. I'm not a trauma therapist.
Sure.
Other people who are learning circling, we teach them enough, or who come in as facilitators, I teach them enough to know how to recognize trauma, how to know not to take it too far, how to ground somebody, how to know when to refer somebody out to somebody who specializes in trauma. But inevitably, everybody's experienced things that are, either extremely traumatic that they've come through, or even just mildly traumatic.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so it might turn into us working with that in the moment, someplace that's maybe an early childhood
Yes.
thing. Or it might just be like, as she just shares her experience, and the experience of doing that in a safe space with me, with a man, with several men who are
Sure.
being with her, and having the real-time experience of talking about something maybe she's never shared or
Yeah.
didn't want people to know, and hearing what it's like for them in the moment. Because often they're there with tears in their eyes,
Sure.
or they
Sure.
suddenly feel closer to her.
Yes. Yeah.
That can't be replicated by talking about
Totally.
something.
Totally. It sounds like there's a lived experience there, which is far more than just a kind of therapeutic understanding of what's
Yes.
happening. Which brings me into, I want to talk about vulnerability. So, we were having a bit of a conversation kind of on Skype last week and off camera around one of the great challenges for, I think, women in this kind of modern kind of day, as it were, is that integration between needing to have the capacity to be strong and independent and self-reliant, self-sufficient was kind of part of how you talked about it. And how that can often obscure or become a block to also having access to the beauty and the power of their vulnerability and openness and surrender. I know it's a big topic and we've got kind of 4 or 5 minutes, but can you just give us a bit of an orientation around that, or some of the ways within or that you would help a woman to work with that?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people, men and women, because I've done a lot of work with men as well, there can be either cultural or family programming that equates being vulnerable with being weak.
Yes.
And so people, so it comes with just a lot of self-judgment, the inner critic. And most people are walking around dominated by this inner experience of the inner critic constantly chattering, evaluating them, judging what they're going to say, judging what they did say.
What they didn't say, what they should say.
Exactly,
Sure.
the whole thing. And actually, as a side note, I will say, in doing all this work, for me and for my clients, that's been one of the biggest gifts is, of course, I still have an inner critic, but it's so quiet now. It's to run
you
my
don't
life.
believe it as much, right?
I don't
just
believe it,
yeah.
and it's just sort of, of course, sometimes it comes in,
I
but
understand,
really, the experience is like, I'm so much more interested in what is happening. I don't care. Even right now, I have no idea what I'm going to say to you. I'm not going to go away from this and analyze it. I feel free in that way. It's invaluable.
Sure.
But so coming back to your question, really getting, and for women, getting what that means to be powerful and vulnerable. Because to me, those go absolutely together.
Well, it's something that's always kind of felt somewhat ironic to me about it, is that the amount of strength it actually takes to be vulnerable. And there's kind of perception that being vulnerable is being weak or lacking strength, but it's the opposite. Certainly, speaking as a man, when you kind of spend your whole life training yourself, you shouldn't feel your feelings. For men to actually go there and express their vulnerability, it takes a huge courage. And of course, the same is true for women to do that.
Exactly.
So it's kind of odd that we have this cultural idea that that's what's weak, because it's the opposite.
Exactly. Well, I think a lot of people only end up experiencing their vulnerability when they've been holding it together for so long till they finally can't, and then they have a little meltdown. And they consider that a moment of weakness when they couldn't hold it together anymore.
Yeah.
And it's different when you're proactively vulnerable.
Yes.
And by that, I don't mean I don't go around telling everybody everything about myself. I don't need to, but I have. To me, what it means is I don't have any judgment about being sad. I don't have judgment about me being angry. I don't have judgment about me not knowing the answers most of the time. And because of that, and that was hard won.
Sure.
It's not like I just convinced myself of that. I went through and did the things that were true and said the things that I did have judgments about, one step at a time about myself, until suddenly all the charge and the shame was taken out of it. And now, And also, so when I started to lead courses and facilitate, most of my role models were men, and these kind of burly men, these kind of masculine men, and there was no way I was going to lead like a man or like they did. So for me to find my own way to lead and be powerful, to own the entire room, to construct what's happening, to direct a whole team of people, including men, about what we're going to be doing and when, as a human being, as a woman, that I don't need to force it with my will. I don't need to get hard and control what's happening. But I'm also, the only reason I can do that, and this is one thing we work with in awe, is we work with boundaries. So I can't be a yes, and I can't be soft and receptive if I can't be a no immediately, without question. Nobody questions me.
Yes.
So you can feel even right now, I don't even have to yell. I can just change my energy because I absolutely know how to do that. And so there's this, that's part of the feminine too, is this kind of fierceness.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. We're out of time. I want to explore that more, but I'm afraid we can't right now. But thank you, Alexis. If people want to find out more about or how would they do so?
They can go to the authenticwomanexperience.com. Okay. It's a long URL, so you've got to make sure you spell all the words right.
Okay.
Authentic Woman Experience, or they can just Google me, Alexis Shepperd.
Okay, great. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Alexis.
Thank you.
Great.
This was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you. And thank you for watching, and we look forward to talking to you again, hopefully very soon on Conscious Tea. Bye-bye.